The Zalkrian observation chamber hummed with a low, steady vibration as streams of data from Earth poured into the central console. At the helm of the operation stood Overseer Kaltrax, a being of sharp, crystalline form and a mind refined through centuries of hyperlogical reasoning. The mission was clear: evaluate humanity's potential threat level to the galactic order. Yet, as Kaltrax surveyed the chaotic signals from Earth, a single question escaped his otherwise disciplined thoughts. Is this some kind of joke? Kaltrax's subordinate, Analyst Porthak, swiveled his oblong form toward the Overseer. Sir, humans display the most erratic behavioral patterns we have ever recorded. Their broadcasts are particularly baffling. One screen showed a man shouting at an inanimate object, what the humans called a printer, as it refused to cooperate. Another displayed a human balancing precariously on a narrow plank of wood suspended over rushing water, apparently for entertainment. A third depicted an individual deliberately entering a hazardous environment in the name of something called a challenge. Kaltrax gestured toward the largest screen. Focus on that one. The display shifted, locking onto a group of humans in rugged attire trekking through a frozen wasteland. Snow battered their exposed faces, and the temperature gauge on the corner of the screen flashed an ominous warning: sub-zero conditions. The group had minimal supplies, crude tools, and no discernible escape plan from the tundra. Porthak tilted his head. This cannot be real. Why would they voluntarily enter such an environment without sufficient preparation? Their probability of survival is less than 14%, Kaltrax interjected. His voice carried the faintest hint of irritation, though whether it was at the humans or the inefficiency of the broadcast was unclear. And yet, they persist. Why? The screen zoomed in on one of the humans, a female with windburned cheeks and a tattered jacket. She was laughing. No, cackling, as though the biting cold and the peril of frostbite were humorous. She slapped the back of a nearby companion, who grinned and joined in her inexplicable mirth. Are they malfunctioning? Porthak asked. Kaltrax hesitated. It was a question worth considering. Every species studied by the Zalkrians adhered to logical survival strategies: conserve energy, avoid unnecessary risks, and prioritize resource efficiency. Humans, however, seemed to thrive on chaos. They sought out danger, expended energy on meaningless gestures, and, even now, laughed in the face of overwhelming odds. We must analyze this further, Kaltrax said. He instructed the system to replay the footage from earlier. It showed the humans trudging through the snow, arguing over the best way to construct shelter. One suggested using nearby branches and rocks. Another proposed digging into the snow to form a cave. The debate became heated, with arms flailing and voices rising in pitch. Kaltrax frowned. They waste time arguing instead of taking immediate action. And yet, Porthak added, his tone puzzled, they eventually reached consensus. Sure enough, the humans combined both ideas, using the branches as a framework for a snow cave. The structure was crude but functional, providing shelter from the relentless wind. They may lack precision, Kaltrax admitted, but they exhibit adaptability. That is unusual. The screen shifted again, focusing on the group attempting to start a fire. Their methods were primitive, involving friction between wood and some sort of spark-producing device. It was inefficient, taking far longer than necessary by Zalkrian standards. Yet, when the flame finally caught, the humans erupted into cheers, exchanging smiles and gestures of celebration. Unnecessary expenditure of emotional energy, Porthak noted. Perhaps, Kaltrax replied, but notice the effect. Their morale improves, increasing their likelihood of cooperation. It is an emotional reinforcement system. Porthak remained skeptical. Still highly inefficient, the Overseer tapped his elongated fingers against the console, deep in thought. Inefficient, yes, but effective. Continue observing. I want to understand why these beings survive when their actions defy all logic. As the footage continued, the Zalkrians grew increasingly perplexed. The humans displayed behaviors that contradicted every principle of rational survival. Yet, Despite their apparent flaws, they endured. Kaltrax couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to these creatures, something the Zalkrian algorithms could not quantify. For the first time in his long career, the Overseer felt a flicker of something entirely unfamiliar. It was not confusion or disdain, but curiosity. The Zalkrians watched intently as the humans continued their struggle against the unyielding tundra. The broadcast shifted to an especially dire moment. One of the group members, a young male, had misjudged the thickness of an ice-covered river. His foot broke through the surface, and before he could react, the fragile sheet gave way entirely, plunging him into the freezing water below. Kaltrax's crystalline form stiffened. This is the end for him. Hypothermia will set in within moments. Their survival rate just dropped to— Wait, Porthak interrupted, his voice sharp with disbelief. The others are moving toward him. What are they doing? The group sprang into action. One human threw themselves flat on the ice to distribute their weight, extending a branch toward the flailing figure. Another scrambled to secure a length of rope, tying it to a nearby rock for stability. The rest shouted encouragement, their voices filled with urgency and determination. This is highly inefficient, Porthak muttered. Why risk multiple lives for one? The logical course of action would be to preserve the majority. And yet, they are succeeding, Kaltrax observed. With a burst of effort, the group pulled their soaked companion from the water. They immediately surrounded him, stripping off their own outer layers to wrap him in dry material. One human began rubbing his limbs to restore circulation, while another worked on igniting their fire again, despite the dwindling fuel supply. This cooperation, Kaltrax said slowly, is unlike anything we have observed in other species. Most would abandon the weak to conserve resources. It is reckless, Porthak insisted, though his tone betrayed his uncertainty. The humans did not stop there. Once the fire was roaring, they huddled together, using their collective body heat to warm the fallen member. The soaked man, shivering violently, managed a weak laugh. He gestured to the others and said something the Zalkrians could not understand directly, but that their translator rendered as, "Next time, I'm letting someone else lead the shortcut." Laughter rippled through the group, their tension melting away. Even the injured man, though pale and visibly suffering, grinned as he clung to the warmth provided by his companions. Porthak's optical sensors flickered. Why do they laugh? What purpose does it serve? Their situation remains critical. Kaltrax tilted his head, studying the humans with newfound intensity. Perhaps it is not meant to serve an immediate purpose. Perhaps it is something more intrinsic. What is this now? Porthak asked, bewildered. Storytelling, Kaltrax replied. A peculiar habit of theirs, often used to pass time or convey ideas. It seems to bolster their morale. The humans' resilience became even more apparent when they encountered a large snowdrift blocking their path. Instead of despairing, they devised a solution. One human began hacking at the drift with a makeshift shovel, while the others formed a line to clear the debris. The process was labor-intensive and far from efficient, but the humans persisted, spurred on by what the Zalkrians could only describe as camaraderie. They expend energy on collective effort rather than relying solely on individual ability, Kaltrax noted. It is an unconventional strategy, but one that appears effective. Porthak remained skeptical. Still, their survival is tenuous at best. Their resources are dwindling, and their physiological limits will soon— They will endure, Kaltrax interrupted, his voice firm. They possess an ability we have yet to fully understand. It is not logic that drives them, nor even instinct. It is something deeper. As the humans cleared the drift and moved forward, their laughter and conversation continued unabated. Kaltrax could no longer deny the truth forming in his mind. These beings, chaotic and unpredictable as they were, possessed a strength unlike anything the Zalkrians had encountered. The group resumed their journey. Once their companion regained strength, their progress slow but deliberate. Despite their exhaustion and limited supplies, they pressed on. One human, carrying a small object the Zalkrians could not identify, began speaking animatedly. Soon, the others joined in, their tones light and animated, even as they trudged through the snow. a strength that defied logic itself. The Zalkrians' curiosity grew sharper as the humans settled for the evening, their breath visible in the frigid air. The group was huddled around their fire, faces flushed with exertion and survival. Despite their precarious state, they seemed oddly content. One human began rummaging through their meager supplies and retrieved a small, battered item, a deck of cards. "What are they doing now?" Porthak asked, his tone bordering on exasperation. "They should be conserving energy, not engaging in frivolities." Kaltrax didn't answer immediately. He observed as the humans began dealing the cards, their voices rising in playful banter. They made exaggerated gestures, laughed at incomprehensible remarks, and even appeared to engage in mock arguments over the game's rules. "They are distracting themselves," Kaltrax said eventually. "Perhaps this is a method to alleviate stress." "But why?" Porthak pressed. "Stress sharpens focus. Distraction is counterproductive." Kaltrax considered this, his gaze fixed on the humans. "Perhaps for them, it is the opposite. Their laughter, their games, it seems to strengthen their cohesion." The card game continued, but soon the humans transitioned into yet another activity. One began telling a story, their voice animated, their gestures grand. The others listened intently, occasionally interrupting with questions or humorous asides. The Zalkrians' translator struggled to capture the nuances, but the words that came through painted vivid images of triumph, absurdity, and danger. Some events real, others exaggerated to the point of absurdity. "This is inefficient communication," Porthak said, though his voice lacked conviction. "They are fabricating scenarios instead of exchanging actionable information." "Not necessarily," Kaltrax replied. "Notice how the group responds. They are engaging with the narrative, drawing energy from it. Perhaps the purpose is not the story itself, but the connection it fosters." The humans' laughter reached a crescendo when one storyteller concluded with an outrageous twist, causing the group to double over in amusement. Even the weakest among them, still recovering from his earlier ordeal, smiled broadly. Despite the bitter cold, their morale seemed unshakable. The Zalkrians' attention shifted when one human stood and began working on a broken piece of equipment, a cooking pot with a cracked base. Using scrap material and sheer ingenuity, they patched it together, making it functional again. This act sparked a flurry of activity as the others joined in, repairing tools, sharpening blades, and redistributing their remaining supplies. "They innovate under pressure," Kaltrax observed. "Even with limited resources, they adapt their tools to meet their needs." Porthak's crystalline structure shifted slightly, the equivalent of a raised brow. "This level of adaptability is unusual, but it is still illogical to waste time on humor and stories when faced with imminent danger." "And yet," Kaltrax countered, "their morale allows them to persist. They transform their fear into something else, something we do not yet understand." As the humans worked, they began singing, their voices uneven and raw but filled with determination. The melody was simple, a rhythmic chant that seemed to keep their energy steady. "Now they are expending more unnecessary energy," Porthak said, though his earlier skepticism seemed to falter. Kaltrax tilted his head. "Or perhaps they're synchronizing. The rhythm of their song keeps them in harmony, improving their efficiency." The Zalkrians watched in silence as the humans prepared for the night. Their shelter was modest, their resources minimal, yet their spirits remained high. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, they found joy in the moment, using laughter, creativity, and connection to push forward. Kaltrax turned to Porthak. "They are not surviving despite their flaws. They are surviving because of them." Porthak said nothing, his usually sharp retort subdued. For the first time, the Zalkrians began to grasp that the humans' behavior, while baffling and illogical, might hold a kind of brilliance beyond their understanding. The Zalkrian council chamber was silent as Overseer Kaltrax presented his findings. A projection of the human group hovered in the air, flickering as it displayed moments from their ordeal, the icy plunge, the improvised repairs, the laughter around the fire. "These beings," Kaltrax began, his crystalline form refracting the light, "challenge every assumption we have made about intelligent life. Their survival is not the product of logic, but of something far more complex. The council shifted uneasily. Counselor Vorther, a figure known for his rigid adherence to protocol, leaned forward. Explain yourself, Overseer. Your report implies that this species thrives on irrationality. Surely, that cannot be correct. Kaltrax gestured toward the projection, which now showed the humans rescuing their fallen comrade. When the individual fell into the ice, logic dictated that they abandon him. To risk further lives for one is inefficient. And yet, they acted as a collective, valuing the group over strict efficiency. Their actions defy our calculations, yet they succeed where we would fail. Vorther's voice sharpened. Emotional bonds are liabilities. They cloud judgment and waste resources. Are you suggesting we should emulate such flawed behavior? I am suggesting, Kaltrax replied, that we reevaluate our understanding of strength. The human's flaws, emotion, humor, creativity, are not weaknesses. They are adaptive mechanisms. The projection shifted to the moment the humans began telling stories. Their animated expressions and laughter seemed almost tangible, even to the Zalkrians. Kaltrax continued, their storytelling and humor serve a purpose beyond mere distraction. These behaviors reinforce their cohesion, bolster morale, and inspire perseverance. Where logic would fail, their connection sustains them. Another counselor, Itrin, spoke cautiously. But their methods are chaotic, unpredictable. How can such instability be a reliable survival strategy? That is precisely why it works, Kaltrax said. Their unpredictability allows them to adapt to the unforeseen. Where other species might falter in the face of variables, humans thrive because they embrace uncertainty. The council murmured, their crystalline forms shimmering with faint unease. Vorther remained unconvinced. Chaos is not a foundation for strength. It is a flaw, a defect. Kaltrax turned to face him directly. It is not chaos, it is balance. They wield their flaws as tools. Their laughter defies despair. Their stories give meaning to suffering. Their irrationality fuels their ingenuity. They are not bound by logic, and that is their greatest asset. The chamber fell silent again as the council absorbed Kaltrax's words. The projection shifted once more, showing the humans singing as they prepared for the night. Despite their exhaustion and the harsh environment, their spirits remained high, their resolve unshaken. Itrin spoke again, softer this time. You believe they are resilient because of these traits? I do, Kaltrax said firmly. We must acknowledge that there are forms of strength we do not yet understand. The humans have taught us that survival is not merely about logic or efficiency. It is about endurance, connection, and finding meaning in the struggle. The council deliberated, their voices a low hum of conflicting opinions. Finally, Vorther spoke, his tone grudging. If what you say is true, these humans are a species unlike any we have encountered. Their potential and their unpredictability poses both a risk and an opportunity. Kaltrax inclined his head. They are not a threat. They are a lesson. Perhaps, in observing them, we may learn to expand our own understanding of survival. The council adjourned, their forms dissolving into the chamber's luminous mist. As Kaltrax prepared to leave, Porthak approached. Do you believe the council will act on your findings? Porthak asked. Kaltrax's crystalline surface refracted faintly, an expression of thoughtfulness. The council may resist, but the truth is undeniable. The humans have shown us a path we cannot ignore. It is not their logic that defines them, but their paradoxes. And in those paradoxes lies their strength. As the chamber lights dimmed, Kaltrax felt a sense of certainty unusual for his kind. The humans, chaotic and flawed, had revealed something profound. Survival was not merely an equation to be solved, but a story to be lived.